How did you guys hear that you won the contract?
Yeah, so we worked on. So the process of winning the contract was we in the summer of 2006 worked for about 2 months on it, really hard, like all night, and then during the day talking to the federal contractors, getting various things explained. So there was a huge amount of work for the first 2 months, and then we submitted it, and we didn't hear anything from them for like the rest of the year until like close to December time, and so like 2-3 months. And then the next thing we heard from them, they're like, oh, we got to do all these audits on you, right? So they're like 5 different audits. There was a financial audit, a logistics audit, a sources audit, past performance audit. They wanted us to prove every aspect of these things. They wanted us to prove that we had the money to support the contract, that we had the logistics arranged, that we actually had sources to supply the contract, that we actually have done this before. So that took like another month and a half or so, during which we did some various shady things in order to pass those audits. Like in the movie, they mentioned one of them, the financial audit. Part of it was they wanted to see that we had an accounting system to handle the large volume of orders and
QuickBooks.
Yeah, exactly. QuickBooks. They wanted to see that we had QuickBooks, but we did not. We had nothing. Ephraim just did everything by the seat of his pants. He never did his accounting. He had no records of anything. Pretty much we had to hire a forensic accountant to go and like create like the last 2 years of accounting records to like backtrack everything, and he pretty much created everything from scratch. It took him like a good few weeks to do that. And so just to make it look like we're a responsible company that does our accounting and takes keeps track of all our financial issues. I thought that was that's like slightly shady, but the even worse was they wanted to see significant past performance, which we did have, but of course nothing was ever. Ephraim was never shy about going overboard, so he created. There was one deal he was gonna do with Ralph's company. For I think 20 million rounds of AK-47 ammo, and then the deal, for whatever reason, it fell through, so it never actually happened. So, but they had already applied for some of the licenses, for the import licenses, to do this deal, and it had been granted. So he used the import licenses that were granted as proof that they had done this deal, and he got a letter from Ralph saying that they had done this deal, which they did not do, but Ralph was willing to bend a few facts in order to win this $300 million contract, which is why he got in trouble later on. But so that was like the whole process, and they also sent down a team of people down to our office to inspect our office. It was a bunch of middle-aged, older ladies. They were all ladies for some reason. I don't know why, but they sent them. They were very nice, very sweet, and we were so nervous because we're like, oh my God, the government's coming into the office. They're gonna see that we're just a bunch of schmucks, and so we quickly bought a bunch of furniture that made it look more professional, because Ephraim was Ephraim was super cheap. He didn't want to spend any money, so he bought everything crappy because he didn't want to buy a nice desk or nice filing cabinet. So, but then he was like, oh crap, the government's gonna see. We got to look good. So he quickly bought new desks, bought a new filing cabinet so it would look nice, and hired a maid to clean up the office because it was a mess. Hired some new people so that would look like we had a front desk person.
Did you guys have any employees at that time?
Not at this time. By the time they came down to our office, we did, because by the time they were doing the audits, we realized that we needed to look legit. So Ephraim rented a nice office.
Okay.
And then we started hiring people because he realized that you can't have a big office with nobody in it. And he wanted to do a few other things. He wanted to like go after a whole bunch of other contracts, and so he decided that this was a good time to expand the business. So this was the time when we started hiring people.
Got it.
And so the government inspectors came down. They were actually very, very nice. Apparently it worked, whatever it was that we did, because they gave us a great report. They said, glowing report, and they awarded us the contract. And so the way I found out about the contract award was I got a call from, I was at home, I got a call from Ephraim, and he goes to me, he's like, hey, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. And I said, well, what's the bad news? And he said, well, our first task order is only $600K. And I said, we won the fucking contract. And he's like, yeah, motherfucker, we won the fucking contract. Wow. He's like, I'm coming to pick you up. We're going to celebrate. And so for people who don't know, the way the government works is when they give you a very large contract, usually what they do is they split it into smaller pieces called task orders, right? So the total value of the contract was $300 million, but they didn't just give us an order for $300 million. They were going to give us pieces of it. Now, when we read the solicitation, it was very clear that the government was only legally required to give us the first task order, and they were allowed to legally cancel the contract at any point after that first task order. So we were nervous. We were like, hey, we're bidding on this contract with the assumption that we're going to get the entire thing. And this is going to make a very big difference, especially for logistics costs. Whether you're hiring one plane or 200 planes is going to make a very big difference in how much that aircraft is going to cost to hire. So we just went under the assumption that they're going to give us the entire contract. But we knew that if they don't give us the entire contract, we'd be screwed, right? Because there was no way we're going to deliver the first task order if we didn't have the rest of it. So when we saw there was a $600,000 first task order, we're like, well, that's not even enough to like fill an aircraft load. So unless they give us a second task order, we're kind of fucked.
And what was that first task order for?
It was for 7.62 by 54 ammo, which was machine gun ammo. And so, yeah, it was, and I think for like a small amount of grenades. And so it was like two different items. They were coming from different countries, and it was like we were not gonna be able to deliver that unless they give us a follow-up task order.
Was it more of a test to see if you guys are capable?
So that's what we thought. At first we thought it was going to be, they're just testing us. But then they gave us the second task order like 2 weeks later before we had even delivered anything. So I think what it really was they just put it out there because that was the money that they had already awarded, given to them by the Army or by Congress. So they were legally allowed to use this money. I think it was like $600K or something like that. That they had already assigned or that they had already distributed to them. Mm-hmm. And they're not allowed to give task orders unless they already have the money assigned to this contract. So they weren't able to give us anything bigger. But then I guess it just took a couple weeks for the rest of the money to come in, and then the next task order was like $50 million. Wow. So we're like, okay, we're good. We're good on the quantity bit. Yeah. And so Ephraim picks me up, and we go to this Italian restaurant, and of course he had this like little plastic bullet filled with cocaine, and so he's like pretending to blow his nose on like the napkin, and he's like snorting cocaine underneath, and he's like passing it to me. He's like you're fucking doing some coke here. You just fucking do it. Just fucking do it. It's like, we're celebrating. We're doing it. We're drinking champagne. We're snorting cocaine. You're fucking doing it. I'm like, okay, fine. I wasn't like really into it. Yeah. I mean, like, I was just like, just to shut him up, because like I've done cocaine, but like, I've never been a fan. I don't like things going up my nose. I prefer a good coffee. I think it does a better job of wiring me and getting me to work, and it lasts longer, and it's healthier for you, and it tastes better, and it it's not crap up your nose that gives you this nasty drip in the back of your throat. It's gross. I really don't understand why people love cocaine, but it's people's brains react differently to different substances. So he loved cocaine. I mean, he was fucking doing it all day. So so he's like, and he started, we got champagne, and he's like, let me tell you something, David. Those fat cats in their boardrooms and General Dynamics, they don't know what's about to hit them. They're worried about their stock price for the quarter. We're going to own these motherfuckers. We're going to be flying around in private jets, and we're going to be owning these guys. We're going to take over this industry. And I'm like, well, Ephraim, let's just concentrate on delivering this contract. And he's like, no. He's like, we're going for everything now. We're rolling now. We're rolling. So he's like, I'm hiring more people. We're going to bid on more contracts. I'm like, Ephraim, let's just concentrate on this contract. I'm like, no. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, you know what? He's like, I trust you, David. He's like, why don't you handle this contract? I think you got the experience. You can handle this. I'm going to go for new contracts. I'm like, Ephraim, I think maybe we should do this together. He's like, no. You got this. So I'm like, okay, look, I mean, if you're insisting I got this, okay. I mean, I'll do it, right? Obviously. And so I started working on it. So in the arms business, one of the big challenges is transportation, right? Because, in any contract, you need to transport things, but particularly when you're talking about military equipment and stuff that's under the ITAR classification, which is all the stuff that's regulated as far as military equipment, you need permission from every country that your goods either pass through like ground-wise or even fly over, right? Now, originally we wanted to ship it all by ocean to like Pakistan and then truck it into Afghanistan, because that would have been by far the cheapest way to deliver. But then everyone told us that's just a recipe for getting all your shit stolen. Because Pakistan and Afghanistan, large parts of it are run by warlords who would love to have a massive shipment of ammo come through their territory that they can grab. And there's nothing you could do about that, because they're a warlord of their territory, and there's no one who can tell them. The rule of law is very, very shaky in that area of the world. So we realized that it was way too risky to do that. We also tried to go to do it by train through Russia, to come in from the north, but the Russians were not happy with us or with the United States at the time, because the United States put the Russians on a blacklist. In fact, this is the reason why we got the contract in the first place. Was originally the army was going to buy everything directly from the Russians, because the Russians had everything. They didn't need to go to a bunch of different suppliers. But then the Russians sold the Iranians some nuclear technology and got themselves landed on the blacklist. And so it became illegal for the United States to buy or sell military equipment from Russia. And then they couldn't buy from the Russians. So then they realized they needed to buy the only other sources of this supply, because this is all former Warsaw Pact ammo. This is not stuff for your M16 or your NATO standard weapon systems that the West uses and the West manufactures. The Afghans and the Iraqis, they're used to using Warsaw Pact weapons like the AK-47. And added bonus, it's way cheaper as well, and the Army wanted to spend as little money as possible to arm our new allies. So they figured it's much cheaper to buy Warsaw Pact weapons. It's also what the Afghans and Iraqis are used to using. And the Warsaw Pact weapons are designed for soldiers who have a much lower level of training. So you don't need to clean it nearly as often for it to work. AK-47s are famously rugged. You could bury it in the ground for 10 years and it'll still fire afterwards. So unlike an M16, an M16 is like a Ferrari. It works very well, but you have to take very, very good care of it. AK-47 is like a Corolla. It'll get you from point A to point B. It'll fire, but it won't be the most accurate, but it'll work forever. So the the Afghans and the Iraqis, in general, have much lower levels of training, and so it was better for them to use these weapon systems, anyways. So, but of course, the West doesn't have factories to manufacture these types of weapons or munitions, at least not in the quantities that they needed. So they realized that the only other source besides Russia, which they couldn't buy from, were all these little former Soviet Union, Warsaw Pact countries in Eastern Europe, such as Ukraine and Albania and the Czech Republic and all those countries. But not a single one of those countries has all the ammo, all the munitions necessary, so they're going to have to deal with a whole bunch of different suppliers. And they didn't want to do that. And so they said, instead of dealing with like 50 different suppliers, we're just going to put it out there for middlemen to give us a package deal. And that's where we came in.